I can still picture it. It was the last week of my junior year at Walla Walla University. Graduation festivities were beginning across campus, and I was standing in an empty room that was about to be remodeled. The old furniture had been cleared out. Construction supplies were arriving, and inside me, there was this quiet excitement, knowing that over the summer, our student center was going to become a new space where students would actually want to gather and do life together. I had spent months working with students, university leaders, and vendors to make this renovation happen. And standing there in that empty room, I remember thinking something almost too simple to say out loud. I love this. I love taking something that needs revitalization and helping to turn it into something people can actually inhabit and be proud of. Now, on paper, it was just a renovation project. But if you've ever led anything, you already know things are never just the thing. A building project is never only about the building. It's always about the people, about the communication, about expectations and trust, and the kind of environment you're creating, and the kind of person you're becoming while you create it. That moment was one of the first times I could feel it clearly. I'm a builder. Not just in the obvious sense, not just I like projects, builder in the deeper sense. I like vision becoming reality. I like possibility becoming structure. I like seeing something that could serve people better and thinking, why not make it stronger? Why not build it?
Learning to Lead is brought to you by Adventist Young Professionals, a global community creating spaces where young adults can grow in faith, build authentic friendships, and discover their calling. Learn more at ayp.me. That's ayp.me.
Welcome to Learning to Lead. I'm Tim Kosaka, founder of Adventist Young Professionals. And this podcast is about what God has taught me through a decade of leading, building, failing, correcting, and letting go. In each episode, I'm going to take you inside my story, the formation, the correction, the calling, the community, and eventually, the release. It's not a polished version of leadership. It's my real experience. And today I want to start where every honest story has to start, before things got impressive. Because a lot of leadership stories get told from the win. The organization grew, the community formed, lives were changed, and all of that is true. But what made that possible is a longer and messier story that usually starts with a person who cared deeply, moved fast, and had more insecurity underneath the drive than anyone around them could see. That's my story. So, let me start with a confession. I've always had a strong achievement wiring. I like to do things well. I like clarity, execution, follow-through, improvement, goals. I like the feeling that something is moving forward because I touched it. And for most of my early life, that wiring got affirmed. You're dependable, you're capable, you take initiative, you get things done. So, I kept leaning into it. But here's what I didn't fully understand for a long time. You can be highly responsible and still be led by fear. You can be impressive externally and still be insecure internally. You can be disciplined, capable, and productive and still be quietly asking underneath all of it, am I enough? That was my experience. Not in a way that stopped me from functioning. I still showed up. I still produced. I still led. But underneath, there were questions I didn't have good answers to. Do I belong here? Can I be trusted with this? Will people take me seriously if I slow down? What happens if I take on something big and find out that I don't have what it takes? Those questions didn't look like anxiety from the outside. They looked like ambition. They looked like drive. They looked like a young leader who was serious about his work, but they were shaping how I led in ways that I couldn't see yet. Because when your worth feels tangled up in your output, leadership stops being a response to something greater and starts being a test. Every opportunity becomes a chance to prove yourself. Every setback feels personal. Every moment of uncertainty feels like evidence that maybe you are not as capable as people think. I remember being in the middle of productive, meaningful seasons of student leadership and still feeling the low-level tension underneath all of it. Not unhappiness, not doubt, just this quiet pressure that if I slowed down or dropped something or didn't meet the standard I had set for myself, something important would be revealed about me, something I wasn't ready to have revealed. And you get good at managing the appearance of confidence while carrying the tension underneath it. You learn how to look composed. You learn how to speak with authority. You learn how to hold a room, and all of that becomes real skill over time. But the foundation that it is sitting on matters, because skill built on fear produces different leadership than skill built on wonder. Fear doesn't always look like panic. Sometimes it looks like overplanning. Sometimes it looks like needing a full blueprint before you will move. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism that comes off as standards. Sometimes it looks like spiritual performance, doing all the right things, saying all the right words, but being driven by something closer to fear of failure than love of God. I knew that framework. I just didn't know yet how much I was living inside of it. And this is why the theme that runs through this entire podcast is the difference between fear and wonder. Because those two things produce very different leaders. Fear makes you look at yourself. Wonder makes you look at God. Fear says, I need to prove I'm ready. Wonder says, what if God uses willing people before they feel ready? Fear says, if I slow down, people will notice. Wonder says, what if faithfulness in this moment is enough? Fear says, I need certainty before I move. Wonder says, I can trust God with the next step, even if I don't have the whole map. That shift from fear to wonder has shaped the last decade of my life more than any skill, strategy, or opportunity. Not because I mastered it, but because I keep having to choose it. And I want to take you through that journey because I think a lot of people leading in their 20s and 30s are living closer to fear than they realize. And they don't have words to describe it yet because the fear is wearing the clothing of dedication.
Ever feel like your calendar's full, but your community's empty? That's why AYP chapters exist. Across cities around the world, young adults are gathering for Bible studies that feel like real conversations, game nights, service projects, hikes, and the kind of friendships that don't end even when the event does. Find your people, find your chapter. Visit ayp.me/chapters and join a community near you. That's ayp.me/chapters.
Welcome back. Let me tell you a little bit more about how I was wired because I think it matters for understanding everything that comes afterwards. You see, I'm the kind of person who notices gaps. I walk into a room and immediately sense what's off, what could be better, what needs clarity, what's missing. I notice when the atmosphere feels cold, when communication is confusing, when the environment is working against the people in it. And once I notice it, I can't unnotice it. Something in me wants to fix it. For a while, I thought that was just how everyone operated. Then I started realizing not everyone leans in when they see a broken system. Not everyone feels that pull toward, why isn't this better? And what would it take to improve it? That's a particular kind of wiring. And for me, it showed up early and consistently. In student leadership, in campus projects, in the way that I thought about community and environment and how people experience spaces. And that wiring, I believe, is genuinely from God, not as something I earned, but as something He placed. because the burdens we carry consistently, the problems that bother us before they bother others, these things often turn out to be clues to what God is forming us to address. Pay attention to what kind of problems make your heart come alive. Not every problem, the specific ones that make you lean in, that keep you up thinking, that make you say, why isn't this better? That may be a clue, not your whole identity, not the full picture of your calling, but just a clue. You see, God often starts with burdens and instincts and holy dissatisfaction long before he gives language to calling. That was happening in me through these early college years. But here's the honest part. While I was discovering the gift, I was not yet mature in the motives. You see, I could build. I loved building. I cared about campus culture, about excellence, about making things better. All of that was real. But underneath it, I was also still being driven by questions I had not fully faced. Questions like, does doing this well prove that I belong? Does my ability to carry responsibility make me valuable? Am I leading because I love serving people, or am I leading because leadership makes me feel like I matter? Those are hard questions. And the reason I'm starting here before the story gets going is because I want to be honest about what actually drives young leaders. Because leadership doesn't just amplify your gifts. It amplifies whatever is underneath them. If you're rooted in wonder, in genuine love for God and for people, leadership can become a beautiful response to that. But if you're still rooted in fear, in the need to prove, to produce, to be seen, to be needed, leadership will amplify that too. And you can be doing genuinely good things, building real things, serving real people, while still being quietly formed by something that God wants to heal. I've watched that happen in my own life, and I've watched it happen in those around me. So, this is where I want to begin, not with the impressive story, but with the honest part of the story. Now, there's a version of my story I could tell that skips straight to the movement. You see, AYP eventually grew. Chapters formed across cities. Young adults found community. Lives were changed. Yes, all of that is true. But if I told that story without telling you about the years before it, the formation years, the correction years, the years where God was working in me before he was working through me in visible ways, I would be telling you a leadership story that doesn't actually help you lead. So, in the coming episodes, I'm going to take you through the real progression. The year I spent as a volunteer at a Christian academy, which sounds modest on the surface, but turned out to be one of the most quietly formative experiences of my life. Or the season in my senior year of college where my drive and intensity started costing people around me more than I understood. The humbling process of learning that leadership is not just about what you can build. It's about what happens to the people around you while you build it. Then fast forward to the post-college unknown, which, if you've been there, you know exactly what I mean. The season where the structure falls away and you have to figure out what you actually believe without the scaffolding of campus life holding it all together. Then in the prayers I prayed in that season, they were so practical that they almost felt too small, but I'll tell you how God answered them in ways that changed the trajectory of my life forever. We'll eventually explore the seed of Adventist Young Professionals, the Instagram page that didn't feel like the beginning of anything, but that turned out to be the beginning of everything. And then the harder lessons that came after, what it takes to build something that actually holds people, what it costs when you let the mission crowd out your soul, what it means to activate others instead of just using them, and eventually what it looks like to release what you built with open hands. That's the arc of this podcast. But today is just the beginning. And what I want you to take from this first episode is simple. The story God writes through your life usually starts much earlier and much quieter than you expect. It often starts in the wiring you were born with and the burdens you can't stop noticing. It starts in the ordinary seasons that feel formative but not impressive. It starts in the questions you carry underneath your productivity. And it often starts with God doing something in you long before he does anything through you. If you're in an early season right now, a season where you feel capable but not yet clear, driven but not yet formed, I want you to hear this. You are not behind. You are simply being built. And the building that happens before anyone is watching often matters more than the building that happens once they are. The quiet seasons, the formative years, the experiences that feel ordinary, those are often where God is doing his deepest work. Not in the moments that make the highlight reel, but in the rooms nobody photographs. The rooms where you're still figuring out what drives you, and whether what drives you is something you've chosen or something you've never examined. That examination is part of leadership formation, and it's worth doing early before the stakes get higher and the patterns are harder to change. And here's what I'd want you to sit on this week. 3 simple but honest questions. First, what am I trying to prove right now? Not what do I think my answer should be, but what is the real answer? Because the honest version of that question and answer often reveals whether you're leading from wonder or from fear. Second question is, what kind of problems consistently make me want to build something better? That consistent pull is worth paying attention to. It may be one of the earliest signs of where God is aiming you. And then finally, who has modeled leadership for me in ways that made me feel safe, seen, and stronger? Now, don't just think about the charismatic leaders. Think about the ones who made space for you. Because that kind of leadership gets into your bones. And eventually, it's what you will give to others.
Someone out there is looking for the kind of community only you could help create. AYP is looking for young adults like you to help build a thriving network of local chapters and virtual groups. Apply at ayp.me/apply. That's ayp.me/apply.
In the next episode, I'm going to take you deeper into the formation years. And I want to be honest about what I got wrong. Because the same drive that helped me to build things also caused real damage to people around me before I understood what was happening. And the correction that followed was one of the most important things God has ever done in my leadership. But until then, thanks for being here. This is Learning to Lead with Tim Kosaka. I'll see you next week.